Hello everybody, my name is Dominic Blevins and this is my informative speech. Now I want you to take a second to just think about the American diet. What foods come to mind when you think of that? So me personally, I think of, cheeseburgers, fries, steak and ribs, Chinese takeout, fast food, all this stuff. And food is already as expensive as is, let alone healthy food. A lot of the foods that we consume are simply just not good for us. They got a lot of preservatives, a lot of things that our body just simply does not need. And so I'm sure we've all heard a lot about them. You either like them or you don't. We're going to be talking about eggs. Now, me personally, I grew up not being a huge egg fan. I still don't like the taste. I'm not a huge fan of the consistency, but the nutrient density and just how good these are and how beneficial these are for your health, everybody should incorporate these into their diet religiously. That's what I want to talk about today. And in particular, the main points I want to cover: what exactly are inside of these eggs that are so beneficial to our health. I want to talk about the differences between the different type of eggs that we see at the grocery store. I know we've all seen, there's different names for all these eggs. They're priced differently. They're different colors. And we don't know which ones to get. So I'll be breaking that down and kind of giving you some light on that. And then finally, I want to cover some misconceptions and kind of go over debunking some myths about eggs, because a lot of people want to shine like a negative light on eggs, trying to claim that they're not as good for you as they say. But I completely disagree, and I'm going to tell you why. Which brings me into my first point. Eggs should be incorporated into everyone's diet, simply because of the nutrients. Now, two main nutrients I want to talk about are the protein and a nutrient that's more under the radar. It's called choline. Now, so protein, of course, we all know what protein is. A lot of things contain protein. However, eggs contain some of the highest quality protein that we can possibly get. And so when they actually compare sources of, protein of other food items, they compare it to the egg, because the egg has a perfect score of 100 in terms of quality protein. So the egg is setting the bar, and nobody's going to top it for sure. And so bringing me into the other nutrient that is very beneficial to us, it's called choline. So this nutrient is actually very beneficial for our cognitive health, or our cognitive function, brain function and all that. Keeps our cardiovascular health going. And that actually brings me to a scholarly article that I read. It is by Margaret Hudson. It is called The Super Nutrient Found in Eggs. And so Margaret Hudson is actually the president of Burnbrae Farms, and this was published in 2018. What exactly did she say? She said, some studies have shown that people with high levels of choline in their blood correlate with better brain function, especially for verbal and visual memory. Me personally, I feel like I go through a lot of brain fog. That does happen to me a lot. And since I've been eating these eggs and trying to incorporate eggs into my daily routine, I try to eat at least 1 to 2 eggs a day. I feel like I wake up a little bit better and I'm able to think a little bit quicker on my feet. And, the evidence is there, which kind of brings me into my next point. So what are the difference between the different types of eggs that we see? We see all these different ones. They got all these fancy names. So I've actually got some examples right here. So right now, I'm sure we've all seen cage-free large white eggs. You see large eggs, man, I want the large eggs. But they're cage-free. So what does that mean? It means the chicken or the hens are the ones that lay eggs. They aren't kept in a cage, but they're still not really given the proper amount of space to, develop their muscles and develop the hormones that are necessary to lay these highly nutrient-dense eggs for us. They're not being fed properly. They don't get the right amount of nutrients in their body. What they eat has a huge dictation on, how good of a quality the egg is. And so another one that I've got here is going to be pasture-raised eggs, organic pasture-raised eggs. Now, these are going to be the best type of eggs that you could possibly find. Just think about it. They're raised on a pasture. They're able to fully move around and eat all the nutrients that they need to, have these thriving eggs and give us these high-quality proteins and the essential minerals and nutrients that we need. Which brings me to another point that I have. It's another scholarly article that I've read. It's called this is actually the name of what it's called. Article explains difference between pasture-raised and free-range eggs. Now this is by Tony Amador. He's an amateur researcher in terms of health, and he researches different foods and all that. And so he stated that these pasture-raised ladies, talking about the hens, are given at least 108 square feet each and consume some feed and lots of grass, bugs, worms, and anything else that they can find in the dirt. So they're getting their own natural proteins, and they're eating these foods that they're meant to be eating. If they're kept in a cage and they're just being given random seed and just being left there to just lay these eggs and just pump them out, they're not going to be high quality eggs, you know. So when we see cage free, they may be cage free, they're not living in a huge cage, but they're still not being fed the proper nutrients that they need, you know. And caged eggs are even worse, you know. They're kept in a cage, they're just constantly pumping out these eggs, and they're going to be very low quality. Their hormone levels are not at the right state, and so they tend to be let out of the barns early in the morning, and they're called back into the nightfall. So these chicken or the hens are free to roam, and they're roaming the pasture. They're getting all the bugs, all the critters that they need to be able to get these going and giving us the good eggs that we need. And so that brings me into my third point that I really want to talk about. So there's a lot of misconceptions about eggs. I'm sure we probably heard that they're probably not as good for you as they say. That's been coming up in recent years. It's been a topic of discussion. And the reason that is because of the high level of cholesterol. Now, it is true that one egg contains around 187 milligrams of cholesterol, which is pretty high in comparison to a lot of other things. Everything has cholesterol. Our body produces cholesterol. Our liver actually produces cholesterol. And there's different types of cholesterol that are either good or bad. And if you have a poor diet and you're constantly eating just, you know, junk food and all this, and you are consuming a lot of cholesterol, then you're not going to have the right balance. It's not going to offset the right way. So you need to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and it's okay to consume these eggs and get that cholesterol, because cholesterol is needed within our body. Like, cholesterol helps to regulate our blood cells, and it lower cholesterol the good cholesterol is able to improve our cardiovascular function. And that's another scholarly article that I want to talk about. This one is called "Are Eggs Risky for Heart Health?" Now, this is by Howard Lewin. He's the chief medical editor at Harvard Health Publishing, and this is published in 2024. And so he says, there were suggestions for eliminating the egg yolk. That is another misconception that we've heard. So I remember my uncle had told me this one time. We were cracking eggs, and he was telling me to not use the egg yolk because the egg yolk is bad for you. You want to keep eating the egg whites. Huge myth. Like, you're missing all the nutrients if you're skipping out the egg yolk. And so the author here explains that when he states that there were suggestions for eliminating the egg yolk and only eating egg whites as a solution to prevent cardiovascular disease. However, several studies on pooling showed inconclusive results on heart problems. Studies prove that egg-free substitutes have not reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease when compared to whole eggs. Now, so what does that mean? All the studies that were done, and people that were eating eggs and people that weren't eating eggs, people were still being at risk for different cardiovascular diseases. You know, that just happens. Eggs are not the main source of, you know, because we're intaking too much cholesterol and they're actually bad for us. It's just phony. I feel like they're out to get us. They don't want us to eat the foods that are really good for us, so they try to downplay them and try to do all that. But eggs are amazing, you guys, I promise you. So in conclusion, you know, I just want to reiterate the things that are inside of eggs. They're very nutrient dense, very packed with protein and choline. They're very good for our brain and our cardiovascular function. And there's different types of eggs. You know, you got to watch out for the types of eggs that you're buying. Me personally, like, I don't want my chickens living in a cage. Like, I'm an animal supporter, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want them living in cages. I want them to be able to roam free, eat what they got to eat, and you know, deliver us these high quality eggs, even if I got to pay a little bit more for it, you know what I mean? Whatever, I'll do it. And so yeah, all these myths and everything about eggs trying to tell you they're not healthy for you. Obviously, too much of anything is not going to be good for you. I'm not saying that you should go knock down 9 egg omelets, you know, on the daily, thinking that you're going to turn into, you know, some superhuman genius. Like, that's not the way it works. You're probably going to mess yourself up. But, you know, in moderation, as with anything, if eggs are just normally part of your daily diet, you're going to be perfectly fine. You're going to be even better than someone that's not consuming eggs on a daily basis, because they're just not getting the quality of nutrients that are within eggs. You can't find that anywhere else, I promise you. So that's about it from you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you guys learned something. Thank you.